live podcast interview on Lifestyle with Luke Lintott, the top podcast for corporate health, wellness, and living your best life. My name is Luke, and I coach seekers of healing to get healthy and loved. And today I'm joined by the amazing, beautiful Kriday Whitlock. We're going to talk more about making waves and standing out, how to find your authentic expression and attract all that you desire, and so much more. And Kriday is an amazing human being, one of my best friends, and we actually met each other on our mats. We did yoga teacher training together, and Kriday has taken off in her business and in her life, and she is a spiritual coach and wears many different hats, and also a model. You'll see Kriday in Broadway modeling for so many different companies like Sunbum, Gap, and the list goes on. And also inside, Kriday is just a healer. She has the gift of spiritual awakening and the gift of authenticity, and we have so much in common beyond. But I'd love to just hand the reins off to you, Kriday, to introduce yourself and what you do.
Thank you. Spiritual awakening. Woo, what? I'm just kidding. Thank you so much for that strong info or intro. What do I do? When people ask me what I do, I just tell them I teach yoga. That's the simplest answer that I have. I teach yoga. I'm a creative, and I like to make stuff, whether it's like leading containers or actually making like tangible things. I love to work with my hands. I love to help people feel their most beautiful, best. I don't even want to call it their best version. I want people to feel whole at the end of the day, and I want them to really embrace themselves. So anything that I can do to inspire that, whether it is something like physical or if it is some type of, I don't know, like truth that they discover within or awakening that they have, by me just offering space, then that's what I'm here to do. That's what lights me up. And that's why I'm here to chat with you today. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on board. And I know during our teacher training, Kriday, like we just hit it off immediately. We have so much in common as queer leaders and also as yoga teachers, also as coaches that don't do more of the same, right? In terms of what we do in coaching consulting, but also in terms of what we do in our own lives, right? We both enjoy getting into nature and enjoy going to new lands and places. We both traveled in Bali. I know that's where you did your 500-hour yoga teaching certificate, was in Southeast Asia. And I'd love to just hear more about that whole pathway that you've gone down that has brought you to where you are today.
I mean, yeah, where do I start? I started like any other yoga teacher. I think Bali was something that I had set my sights on. I was thinking to myself, I'm going to get certified, and then I'm going to go to Bali and take an even better training. And I really wanted to be the best that I could be at teaching. And that was inspired by all of the amazing teachers that I had along the way. And so, yeah, I did that whole thing right before COVID. Then once everything shut down because of the pandemic, we were all kind of thrown into this space of, what do I really want to do? And it's crazy because everything changed for me. I thought that I was going to be teaching, like I was prepared when I got back from Bali. I was like, I'm going to start my business, and I'm going to become this like master trainer at these studios, and I'm going to be teaching 15 classes a week, which is ridiculous. And I'm so glad that I'm not saying it's ridiculous. Like if you do it, like it's ridiculous for me. There's no way that I could be running around and doing that. As a creative person, I need to sit and have time and space to just do nothing. And so I would have been really running myself ragged in that type of lifestyle. Shout out to all the teachers who do and are inspiring so many students. But that was cut short for a good reason for me when COVID did hit. And so through that, I got to really think about what I wanted for myself, my goals, my desires, my vision, but not my old vision. It was like the vision that shifted, because when things shut down, we recognized that the world might not be the same, or we didn't really know what the world was going to look like. So we had to really dig deep within. And instead of envisioning what was next, we had to think about what we wanted. What was valuable to us, our time, our safety, our bare minimum needs being met, our community connection. Like those are the things that really, really like mattered. And I was like, oh my goodness, like this is so crazy that these are, I don't know, it's just like the world had to stop for us to reassess. So I did a lot of deep diving, and I also had the opportunity to start coaching. So that's how I got into the coaching world. And I worked with some amazing clients. And I actually got a text message just this morning from a client that I worked with 2 years ago. And the story with this client is that at the time, they couldn't afford how much my full rate for my services cost. And I was just like getting to know this person. We had a meeting, and I was like, wow, I feel like I can really relate to this client. And I think that this is such a perfect fit. So the client couldn't afford my rates. And then I decided, you know what? I'm going to make it work. We're going to find a number that works for both of us. I'm going to give a discount, even though at the time, all of our mentors were like, don't give discounts, blah, blah. Like, at the end of the day, listen to your intuition and do what feels right for you. That's what I did. I'm not saying it's always going to work out, but in this case, it did. Got a text this morning from this client 2 years later. It's been 2 years. And they sent me this text saying how thankful they were. And they also sent me the money that I had discounted from my rate. And I was like, I was not expecting this person to pay me back. Like it was 100% okay. But that just goes to show that, follow your intuition, and 9 times out of 10, it's gonna pay off. So that was a just amazing, amazing reminder to just trust yourself, to trust myself, and the universe, it works in mysterious ways. So yeah, I'm super
Congratulations
thankful.
to you and also to your client for the growth they experienced, I'm sure. And it had a lot to do with working with you, right? Since no one does it alone. And I think you brought up such a great point that your emotions are your most intimate ally. So I know I used to push down how I felt and do what I saw, whether it was in dating, whether it was in my body, right? I used to heavily drink, used to not do yoga, right? And when I stopped listening to the voices and started listening to my intuition, that's when things have really taken off, right? In terms of love, in terms of health, and of course, beyond. And I'm
Mhm.
curious to know, like, with people out there that feel like they've lost touch with their intuition, maybe there's a former version of yourself here listening to this podcast. What is a place where's a place they can start in getting in touch with their creative side and in touch with what is best for them rather than what they may see or what they may have been told will make you quote unquote happy or quote unquote successful?
Yeah, yeah. I'm just gonna break it down real quick. Find out what your human design is. Check that chart, see what governs your decision making process. Um, and if you're not familiar with human design, it is an amazing tool, and it pulls from all of these areas that we already know that tell us about ourselves, like astrology. I don't know. I think, well, definitely Chinese medicine. I think Enneagram may be in there, but so it compiles all of this, and it shows you pretty much a chart based on all of these different resources, all of these different modalities. And it's just an amazing way to really, it for me, when I first checked my human design, it really validated me. It told me I'm a generator, meaning I have this endless energy to create. And also that my gut really, in my spleen, govern my decision making processes. So when I feel it, it's that sudden urge for me, that is the right decision for me to make. And it always is. But what I will try to do, and what I tried to do in the past, is think my way out of what I felt in my body. And on top of that, if you're like not super into human design, or you're not really sure if that's a step that you're ready for whatever reason, just start to feel in your body. Begin to connect with your body. Do something that like yoga, where you have to move, or something that makes you feel really in your body, whether it's just dancing or moving, anything like that. Maybe meditation, maybe stillness is something that's going to work for you. And start to recognize when you have reactions to things, when your nervous system starts to freak out, whenever you feel in your body, and ask yourself, like, where am I feeling this? Maybe your throat starts getting tight and you get anxiety in certain environments and situations. Listen to that. And that is where the healing work begins. That's where you're going to connect to your intuition the most.
So powerful, y'all. Love it. And another thing is that we're in this time of transition, right? The days are still getting longer. We're entering summer, and a lot of people are transitioning locations. Like I know a lot of people are moving. Some people are also pivoting. And we're in this time now where, of course, change has always been the human condition, but things are changing arguably now more than they ever have, right? We're globally connected right now. And I'm curious for people that are quote unquote in transition, like they're pivoting to a new relationship, they're pivoting in terms of location, literally, or in terms of who they are, since your personality is not permanent, right? And a lot of people that are doing this work that are going deep and reprogramming are stepping into a new life. And sometimes that means that things that used to work are going to crumble, right? So that we can rebuild,
Mm,
whether it is an old relationship, an old job, and old, even like your body, right? Our muscles literally break down so they can rebuild stronger. For people that are in a transition and they're feeling like, I got so much going on, Kriday, I would love to do all these things. I just don't have time. I just don't feel like I'm ready. What words of wisdom would you give them?
yeah, I was in this space for a really long time last year. I would say even up to about 6 months out of the year last year, I was in this space of deep transition. And transition can be such a anxious, painful, just emotional place overall. Everyone's experience is going to be slightly different with it. But I noticed from my experience, this was like the longest time I've been in that space, that I was very much trying to move out of it. And the more that I tried to push ahead, the more that it dragged me in. So the best advice that I can give is just to accept where you're at, step number one, and to really just own that space. I think one of the themes that we hear a lot is holding space, right? And holding space for others specifically. But we have to, take the lens inwards and actually hold space for ourselves. So sitting with yourself, accepting where you're at, and then from the acceptance is where you can move. But it's not something you control. It's just something that happens. That's
Mhm.
the most spiritual piece of advice I can give. The other thing that I'll say is just move your body, drink your water, just cover your basic needs the best that you can. And know that maybe you need help. Maybe there's a friend that can assist you. Do not be afraid to reach out for help. A lot of us share a trauma response of isolation. I know that I do, and it can be hard to reach outwards when we think that we are our energy is too negative or whatever it is to put on. We don't want to put our energy on somebody else and drag them down or whatever we think is going to happen. But people, your friends, the people that care about you, they want to uplift you. They want to be there for you. And so just being vulnerable by reaching out in that way is it's going to help a lot.
Beautiful. Reaching out is key. And another thing I want to mention too, if you are in transition and something that you thought that you wanted is no longer working out, I wanted to invite you to just simply journal alternative scenarios that actually could be better than getting what you now think that you want. Because what you want now is likely not what you're going to want a year from today, since we continue to evolve and continue to change.
Mhm.
And with that in mind, so I wanted to talk more. I know like we just recently had Juneteenth happen, Freedom Day, and I love the post that you made about how there are different ways to show freedom, to show support. I know you mentioned there was something to do with like with your hair, with how you creatively express yourself, and I would love to just hear you talk more about that and what you've been doing.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, the post that you're referring to, I mentioned hair as a form of resistance. And let's see, do we want to talk about resistance? There's so many. We're not going to talk about resistance here in this moment, but I do want to talk about just expressing yourself, maybe. Let's talk about that as resistance, because it is expressing yourself as a form of resistance. If you're wondering, like, what do you mean by the word resistance? Just being your unique self. Because in the society that we are in, and this is just what it is, right? We are often told to just blend in, and we have a primal urge to fit in because anybody who gets left out of the tribe gets left behind and will die, essentially. So while we live, that's where the society we're in, we also live in a different world nowadays. And what can help us to thrive is actually standing out, actually just being who we are, regardless of what other people think. And the more that we break away from that, the more that we can speak our truth, the more that we can unblock our chakras, the more that we can elevate and inspire other people to live their unique expression and be who they are. I think that it's just so beautiful to see, especially in the current climate of it being Pride Month and in the drag community. There's so much fear around what drag is going to do when to the kid out there who may be queer, it's going to be so inspiring, so uplifting. It's going to change their life. And that is an example of how unique expression is liberation.
That's so beautiful. I think of it for me in small ways, like getting my ears pierced, wearing jewelry, and also dance as a form of resistance. And I wanted to mention too, something that had really resonates with me is that rest is resistance. And us like really recharging and healing and knowing that we don't necessarily need to be doing somersaults and working 5 jobs to be worthy. And I think that for me, it's been a lot about that mindset work. And like you mentioned before, community, having people around me that do affirm my identities, that love me. And it's the great work I do is just as much for my clients and my people as it is for me, right? What if it makes me feel good. And with that in mind, with creative expression as a form of resistance, for people out there that feel like I'm even thinking, Kriday, about my followers and friends who live in countries where it's punishable by death right now to be gay, or my people out there that live in states where they can't be a drag queen, right? Like we're in such a beautiful little bubble here in San Diego, California. How can these people creatively express and show their form of resistance, even when maybe it's underground, or maybe they aren't even able to do it at all? Like, what is it? What's an alternative scenario that might be still fulfilling, still empowering?
Mm, that's a powerful question. That's a really powerful question. I do feel so, we're so lucky to live where we live now, where it's like you can pretty much be yourself for the most part. But in situations where your safety is compromised, like being yourself will compromise your safety. I think that in those scenarios, I'm not entirely sure if my life were on the line, how it would be the best way to express myself. But I feel kind of like transported into a childlike state when I used to write my secrets in my journal, right? And I'd write in my journal and lock it up for no one to see, um, or in hopes that nobody would discover it. So I feel that in that type of situation, I personally I don't know what to advise these people, but I'm sure that they have some type of outlet, maybe a friend, maybe just like a secret place that they can just be themselves, whether it is like an internal state. Um, but I think that environment is truly everything when it comes to your strengths and your weaknesses. A weakness, a perceived weakness, perhaps like say like being gay or being really tall or being super skinny, like whatever somebody perceives as their own weakness may only be a weakness in one environment. When you go into a different environment where you are celebrated,
Mhm.
suddenly that same thing that you may be ostracized for turns into a strength. So it is about environment, and it's really sad that only that it's a privilege to be in an environment where we can't express ourselves. But at the end of the day, this is the real world, and these are challenges that people face. So my heart does go out to them.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell everyone out there that is in this type of situation, you are loved exactly how you are. And we are in 2023. So the great thing is, even if you do live in a quote unquote oppressive environment, you can still access this live. You can still connect with us virtually. And I think that's what's so beautiful. And we are now living in a borderless society. And Generation Z is the first generation. The younger people out there are the first generation to live in a borderless society, to grow up in it, and it's spreading like wildfire. So I'm really excited to see what the future holds, because what the norms are now, also in terms of time, are not what they're going to be in 5, 10, 20 years. Things are changing very quickly in
Yeah.
so many good ways as well. And going off of that, like in terms of creative expression and making waves, for the people out there, I was actually just reading this in someone's summary of themselves that I received. A youth actually was writing about how she used to struggle fitting in and pleasing people, and it actually made her depressed, right? Later on, she actually expressed that getting off of social media helped her to really get rid of her anxiety and her stress, right? Maybe that same thing that is helping us be more authentic and connect, right? And
Mm,
I'm curious for the people out there, maybe it's the youth, maybe it's someone else who's like, I'm really struggling with kind of the comparison game and feeling like I'm behind. And they might even think like, hey, I'm gonna trash social media. I'm gonna stay away. Like what other ways, or maybe that is the answer for some people, but what are some great ways that people can really stop that disease to please, and that desire that everyone's gonna want to have everyone like them? What are some great tips for those that are making waves, standing out in their own ways?
yeah, I think it's an inner journey first. You want other people to like you, but do you like yourself? Do you value yourself? Where are you spending your energy? What kind of boundaries do you have? And this is stuff we hear all the time, but it's kind of like, how there are so many resources out there, and everything comes with practice, right? It comes with just using your voice, even though you're scared that one time to speak up to somebody who, is being off putting, to send that DM to a friend, to a partner that is expressing your needs and making, and like it might feel weak at the time to send it, or it might feel off. But when you're speaking to what you need and letting people know how to love you, essentially, there's so much strength in that. And it really does help to figure to like establish yourself within self-love, right? I think boundaries, I think like cultivating your voice are some of the most powerful self-love tactics or practices that you can really polish. So I think it's an internal thing. And for everybody who falls into the doom scroll, we are all, we all kind of like can get into that space. The best thing that helps me is to remember why, why I'm on my phone, right? I am here to create. I am here to inspire, lift, whatever your thing is, your purpose, stay connected to it and make sure that you are creating more than you are consuming, right? Because when we're consuming, we get stuck back into that mindset of lack of comparison, and authenticity is lost to comparison. Comparison, it produces competition. You're just trying to compete and you're just trying to copy. That's why it feels so rigid. But once you break free of that, and you're able to express yourself, and you're not looking at what everybody else around you is doing, your expression becomes completely unique. It becomes completely your own. And it's even more powerful because people haven't seen it done before. And nobody can do it because it's you.
You brought up a really good point. Like your gift as you as a human is the greatest thing that you have to offer to the world, is you being you, and it's the bravest thing that you can do. I wanted to also mention that rejection is redirection and a blocking is a blessing. So
Mhm.
rather, I used to be the type of person that watered myself down in order to make everyone else comfortable. Now I've really stepped into my power in speaking my truth, and the true Luke inside is guiding my life. And I have noticed that those people that are not no longer aligned with me, I've loved them away, right? We can love each other from a distance. I even sent an email out to my subscribers recently, and I mentioned to everyone, like, if you desire to unsubscribe, go right ahead and unsubscribe. It's okay, boo. I will love you from a distance. So I wanted to offer that way of thinking about it. On top of that, now we are in the age of imagination, right? Like you can Google just about anything. And so your creativity is not only helpful, it's actually necessary, right? You, being more than artificial intelligence. And so, and I know with the most successful people that I've, rubbed shoulders with, like Malcolm Harris, Tamar Braxton, with Joe, right? And these different scenes I've been in, I've noticed that these people are so comfortable being themselves, right? Being unique, and they're also okay with not having people align with them. And that's helped them really soar and go past that upper limit. Now, in a world where we feel this sometimes desire to conform, how do you harness your gift as an intuitive, as a creative? What has helped you not become what you see?
Yeah, this is something that even I get caught wrapped up with. It's this desire to be liked versus just expressing yourself, right? And there's so many different factors that get wrapped up in there. And I think one of the main things that gets in the way is the ego. Because the ego is the one that wants everybody to like them because the ego is just trying to keep you safe. The ego doesn't want people to dislike you or to be a danger to you or get in the way, right? And so I think that the things that allow me to most authentically express myself are when I can put the ego to the side. And for me, that looks like my showing up to my yoga practice and constantly watching my ego wanting to assert itself as I'm moving from pose to pose, right? I'm in meditation and I'm constantly watching my ego trying to pull me in this direction or that direction, trying to feed my anxiety or whatever depression or whatever's going on. And it's the moments in between all of the noise where the ego is just resting, right? Because we're not trying to completely escape the ego. We just want it, we just want to, it to not be damaging to us because it just wants to keep us safe, but not all the ways that it wants that are valuable. And so I think it's just getting quiet in my mind. And that's the moments when I can really return to true self. And the truth will always come from that. So it's just easier to express.
Very true. And when you are happier, you are healthier. And I know in my own journey, in becoming happy and dating who I desire today and speaking my truth and living it, that's really helped me to get healthy, right? And of course, a lot of times I'll mention it's helped me, of course, lose weight when I was heavier and also gain weight because I know that that's when I get unhappy, sometimes I won't eat as much, right? And
Mm.
so I've really focused on, like we were talking earlier, about the whole thing of feeling good, right? And raising my vibration through dancing. I know we went to a drag brunch last weekend, and also surrounding myself just with people who will bring me higher. And so now in my life, I'm okay, being alone. And like you said, doing that inner work, getting creative, journaling, spending time doing my own hypnoses, my own meditations, which is something we go deeper to in the program, releasing the ego. Number
Mm.
two, it's been about being around people like you, Kriday, people like my own coach, people like my clients, right, that really elevate me and drive me to be better. And I know I wouldn't be here today where I am if I continued to do it alone, because for most of my life, I did it alone and I did the same thing, got the same result. So for the people out there that have been doing it alone for quite some time, and that maybe they're holding on to weight, maybe they want to gain weight, maybe they desire to feel good, right? What what words of advice would you give to them as they maybe make a pivot, as they maybe transition to improve and get in touch with their creative side, their healthiest, best self?
Yeah, so I think you brought up a good point when you were talking about who you surround yourself with. I think that's a huge part of self work and raising your vibration and essentially becoming the vibration that you want to operate at. Um, a lot often we get surrounded by the wrong type, or we put ourselves in the wrong circles, and we don't really realize how much those circles are weighing us down, making us feel small, feeling like we need to compete with people, and we just get out of alignment pretty easily. But when you start to surround yourself with people who are optimistic, who are creative, who kind of challenge your energy. And what I say what I mean when I say challenge your energy, have you ever been around somebody that was so positive it kind of pissed you off? Like so just like vibrate. There's something in you that like kind of shriveled and cringed. Has it ever happened to you?
Yeah, especially when I was in a darker space, the
Yes.
envy, the jealousy came out. Yep.
Exactly. So those types of people, we want to operate at that level when we are around them, when we see them. And there's a part of us that gets so scarce because we know that we're not there yet. And so that gap is what's killing us. It's not really them. It's the reflection of ourselves that we cannot see in them because we're not there yet. But I have a friend like this, Junpei, and he's so just like this positive light that it triggered me at first. At first, I was not ready for all of that love and positivity and all of that. But over time, he's somebody that really helped me to kind of like excavate those dark spaces. And this is work that I just did, on my own. I'm not like putting it on anybody else, but it allowed me to shed light on those areas and see what was really bothering me, what was really holding me back from that. And through that, I was able to become more expressive, more creative, because when we take that accountability, like take on that work and start to dive deeper into our demons, our darkness, we become more expansive. We express on this like wider spectrum of possibilities. We can go low, we can go high, we can go everywhere. And so I think that's such a beautiful depth to explore. Put yourself in different situations around different people, do things differently, and it really will change your life.
Absolutely. So I would love to know in the comments, anyone just comment below, what is something different you're going to do in order to get a new result? Maybe it is connecting with us. Maybe it is changing your diet, what have you. And I love that. And I know that this is something, once again, that we go deeper into when you work with one of us, but there's something called shadow work, right? And shadow work is uncomfortable. That's when you go deep into your demons and you address your wounded, dysfunctional inner child, those things that you might have experienced growing up. I know for me, it was dealing with getting beat up and not loving myself for exactly who I am. And since I've done that work and I've flipped those beliefs, kind of like what you were saying earlier, those same identities, being a creative, being queer, being Native American, all those things that I used to actually be made fun of, they're actually huge strengths, right? Those are superpowers that other people would love to have. And so I know with people out there that have not done the shadow work for fear that it might actually make things get worse, I'm wondering, like, and I wanted to mention too, shadow work can be really fun too. It can be great because you're getting in touch with your inner child. I know through my first hypnosis, the first time I did it, I met my inner child and I realized I locked him away in the basement and thrown away the key. And I remember that's when and through the breath work, which we're going to be doing this week in the program, through the daily hypnosis, I've actually given power back to my inner child. And that's why you see me now doing my dance videos. You see me creatively expressing myself and serving as a light, including a light to the people, like we were talking about earlier, that can't necessarily be a light yet. So I'm just wondering, in terms of that shadow work, if you will, what are some things that people out there can do to just get one tone level higher, feel a little bit better so that they can reach out, they can get to the point of not doing it alone?
Yeah. So they say that healing your trauma is to essentially revisit it with a different outcome. And so, what that's looked like for me in my healing journey has been forgiving myself and just kind of like visiting those dark spaces and holding myself with compassion. And it's hard to do at first because there's so much built up shame and guilt. It's kind of like plaque that lives on our soul. And the shadow work is essentially removing that plaque piece by piece. And plaque's not hard to get off, right? You're going to have to cry. There's going to be tears. That is the discomfort that may come with the work. But essentially, it's for me a lot of my early work, and it's a lifelong journey, happened in my journal, right? It happened in a safe space where I could really express myself. And it also happened in community. That was another layer of healing as well. So holding space for yourself and then trusting that somebody else will hold space for you in a setting where, they're set up to do that, has been really helpful. I think mirror work it depends on where you're at, but when I did mirror work for the first time, it completely shifted something inside of me that really needed to be shifted. So if you haven't tried either of those, definitely do. Do you have any recommendations, Luke? 'Cause I know you
So
do.
many, I was
Yeah.
writing them down. So my first is to stare at yourself in the mirror, and we're gonna and look at yourself really clearly. How and just take it all in and look into your left eye. That's actually where your inner child resides. And just stare and just say those loving words to your inner child. I love you. I am loved. You are worthy. All those great things. Know that you've gone through these hard experiences, which have you, and also misinterpretations of things that happen. For those of you that are like, well, why the hell do I feel this way? Do I feel a type of way, even though things were okay growing up, what have you? Now, the first step is, of course, connecting with that inner child and really parenting your child now as an adult. I actually have a picture, which I recommend you do this. I have a picture of my inner child, my 3-year-old self with my mom and my sister at the beach in Northern California. And every day when I wake up, I look at my inner child and I tell him, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. I'm looking out for you. And I know for me, like I have my own lens. So grateful for my family and parents. But I did have 6 parents growing up, right? Like, so I did spend a lot of my childhood moving, going from home to home, feeling like I had to change, right? And yes, you could look at that as a negative, but it's a huge positive. You could throw me in front of just about anyone and I'm able to really connect, right? Because of these experiences growing up. And so I really like telling yourself those affirmations is key. And also writing, so once again, the journaling aspect is really critical, but also I would just invite you to just what's called brain dump, just write what's coming to your
Oh,
mind,
yeah.
anything and everything, so that you can just reflect and be like, dang, like I remember when I first did brain dumping, Kriday, like I looked back and I was like, oh my God, this is how I'm talking to myself. Like I'm not treating myself as my own best friend. Now
Yes.
things have shifted so much. Like I will be saying my affirmations like, I love you, Luke. You got this. It's okay that didn't work out.
I gotta say
Something's
something about
better.
brain dumping.
Go for it.
I have recently come back to this practice. I have a notes tab in my Word documents where I just will brain dump and just type out things before I even get started with my real work. And for anybody who doesn't know what brain dumping is, imagine this. You gotta take a shit, right? You gotta poop. It's gotta come out, right? And if it doesn't, you're gonna get all backed up. A lot of us spend a lot of our time backed up in our head. There's so many thoughts circulating in there. So taking them and just flushing out the stuff that doesn't need to be there helps you clear your mind for the important stuff. If anybody is on who struggles with falling asleep at night and you have a million things in your mind, brain dump, write out your 3 most important tasks on a sticky note so that you can go to bed in peace and you can wake up knowing exactly what you need to get done in the day. Super simple little tricks like that. They cost absolutely nothing. And it's just a good way to just get started on some of this stuff. Thank you for mentioning.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I wanted to mention too, when you're taking these steps, it's important to sometimes do them within the first hour of waking up or the last hour before going to bed. Those are the most precious times for your subconscious mind. That's when 95% of your brain opens up. And so if you're looking at the news or something that can trigger you, or even negativity that you may read about online, what have you, that can bring you into a dark place when you're dreaming, when you're manifesting your future. So I just wanted to also, of course, invite you to have those boundaries with self. So for me, that means putting my phone down at the latest 9:30. The goal is 9, but it does end up being 9:30 p.m. a lot of times. And then also being loving with yourself when you do break those boundaries, right? And treating yourself like your own best friend, because it can also be a spiral if you're too hard on yourself and doing all this wellness and doing that healing journey with grace, right? And that's why we make it a lot of fun when you work with one of us. Next, I want to just mention, like, because you touched upon having trouble sleeping. Now in my life, I sleep like a rock. Like I go to bed and it's like boom, done, out. Now, it used to be that I could not fall asleep. I had hardcore insomnia. I took so many supplements to try and go to sleep, like the lavender. I was taking all these different things and medications for other things too. And the reality was, for me, it had to do with really shifting my life, right? And how I thought about my life and my environment, my daily activities, like we're talking about the community. And it happened slowly but surely. And it, like you were talking about earlier, it's a never ending process to get healthy, loved, and more healed. But the thing that holds it all together, no matter how much money you make, no matter how many houses you buy, whatever it is, or how muscular you get, is actually the love. So they've actually found, like, when, even if your life is really hard, but you have love, maybe it's love of your family, love with your friends, love with your romantic partner. It can be so many different ways. That's going to really keep you grounded no matter what happens. So I just want to invite you to that. Pour into yourself, love yourself, treat yourself like your own best friend. And for me, that means how I'm eating, how I'm drinking, who I'm around, how I talk to myself.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. Thank you for that.
yeah. Anything coming up for you that you wanted to add to that, or anything else?
I think there's just, if to anybody who's watching this, you're listening to us list off all of these things. And I think the most important part is that whatever just one that stood out to you, just do that one thing. I think that we live in a, like, just there's information overload, right? And when we hear too much and that we get overwhelmed, like, we're not going to do any of it. So pick one thing that resonated with you and just do that one thing. Start with a small, simple step, because that is loving, when you give yourself something that you can digest instead of overwhelming yourself and being so hard on yourself and expecting to do everything all at once. So that's coming up. So I just wanted to mention that for anybody who's like, oh.
Yes. And simply breathe in with me now, positivity and light, and exhale any negativity. Thank you for that. I 100% agree. With that in mind, Kriday, I wanted to start off with, or close out rather, with, what is the best advice you've ever received?
Hmm. The best advice that I have ever received. So it's actually not advice. It is I guess it is advice. It's a quote that I have been living by for the past few years now. And I don't know who the quote is by. I've looked it up and I can't find who, which is kind of unknown. But it goes like this: we don't create a new world by waging war against the old one. We do it by creating art and telling stories that make a new world irresistible. And the
Ooh,
gist of that is just to leave things, leave people, leave places, leave yourself on a higher vibration than when you started, than when they found you. That's been really powerful. And I want to quickly mention it inspired me to create a few different things. And one of them is launching my first continuing education yoga course. Doing this with a friend, Nicole, and it's called Authentic Expressions. It's really about finding what makes you unique, what makes you stand out, how to transform your perceived weaknesses into your unique strengths. And just, yeah, standing out, making waves, and finding your superpower as a yoga teacher, as a leader in your community, as a space holder, as a facilitator of whatever it is that you are bringing to this world, to this table.
super cool. I'm excited to hear more about that, Kriday. Number two, since not all advice is good advice, what's the worst advice you've ever received?
Okay. I'm not going to have the question how you want me to answer it, but I will say it's not about the advice being bad. It's usually about who the advice is from. So I love my dad dearly, and he is so, so wise. But in this book that I read, if you've read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, this is just an example. It says in that book, you can't don't take advice from your poor dad on how to get rich, right? So this is to say, don't take advice how to live your life better from somebody who is cynical and unhappy, because in reality, that person doesn't think that they can do it. So they don't think that you can do it. So they're going to try to deter you from doing it in the first place. So I wouldn't say it's what, it's who.
Ooh, that's a really good one. I'm gonna check out that book. Thank you.
Like, don't
And
let your friends who haven't even tried it deter you or hold you back.
so true. Now, anything else that you wanted to mention that we didn't have a chance to cover today, Kriday?
Well, let's see. I don't have anything super specific. I think I have something brewing that's still in the crock pot and it's not quite done yet, but it is an opportunity to work with me one-on-one. This is pertaining to coaching, to leadership. So when that is, I will present it. But for now, just be on the lookout.
That's very exciting. Couldn't recommend you more highly, Kriday. Number two, for people that are vibing with you online, listening to the podcast, what have you, where can they find you and follow you?
Yeah. So my main page is my Instagram account, and the handle is with Kriday. I also have, if you are into crochet and knitwear, I have my line on Instagram too. It's called by Kriday. So it's Kriday spelt with a K, kind of like Friday. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Beautiful. And for those of you that are watching on social media, comment your biggest takeaways below. Any questions you have, we will follow up. Number two, if you're listening to this podcast and you really liked this episode, please feel free to leave a review. We'd love to hear your feedback. And I hope that you have an amazing afternoon as you pour into yourself, the most valuable thing that you have. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Kriday. Have an amazing day.
You too.
Bye, everyone. Take care.